Good morning, Upper School. Good morning, everyone. And welcome to 2026 World Ready Week. Welcome to our upper school student panelists who will introduce themselves in a moment. I want to give a special acknowledgement to our Office of Belonging and Community and Ms. Pat Jackson. Where'd Ms. Pat Jackson go? There you are. Pat Jackson, Annika Emerson, our assistant head for Learning and Innovation, Tom Moore, and a crew of our administration and leadership across campus have done a lot of preparing. And of course, we have to say many of you have as well, because in some ways the heart of this week are the over 100 student workshops that you have designed and created, right? So a shout out to our workshop presenters. But we always start World Ready Week with a keynote to set the tone and get us started. This year, our theme is Many Viewpoints, One Viewpoint. And to introduce our speaker, we first have a little video.
Here comes a great drive. Going to get a touchdown right here. Let's go. Let's go through what we're capable of doing. Hey, let's find it in ourselves. Let's go. Challenge these guys, man. I love it! Let's go!
Let's go! To open World Ready Week, we welcome the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, and one of the most influential figures in modern football, Coach Sean McVay. So I have a little intro. Coach McVay is widely respected, reflecting this school year's theme of excellence. He was the youngest head coach in the NFL's modern era when he was hired by the Rams in 2017 at age 30, and he went on to lead the franchise to a victory in Super Bowl 56 in 2022. Rams fans know it was the first championship since 1999. And that made him the youngest coach in NFL history to win a Super Bowl at age 36. Oh, you told me not to mention your age, sorry. They also had an impressive run this last season, reaching the NFC Championship game. What's more, he is known for redefining modern leadership through preparation, adaptability, and trust in others. His ability to build culture, to inspire teams, and to perform under pressure reflects the very qualities that we hope to cultivate in you, our students. As we explore this week what it means to be world ready, Coach McVay's perspective offers powerful lessons that extend far beyond the football field. Welcome, Coach Sean McVay. I think then you'll be looking at the students, which is
Perfect.
Good. So we're very honored to welcome you and hear a little bit about your journey, about leadership and how you build culture in teams and the relevance for these students in their future. One of the things about their future is our upper school students are, of course, looking most immediately at college. And you played at Miami University of Ohio. And you did not go on into a professional playing career, but had another path. Can you tell us a little bit about how you figured out what your path was?
Yeah, I think the first thing is similar to what you guys are doing. I got a great opportunity. I went to Marist School, but a lot of similar values and principles that you guys have here. And I think one of the biggest things is you become the company you keep. You know, you guys are surrounded by a lot of other motivated people that are ambitious, but I think it's so important. Surround yourself with the people that inspire you to continue to move in the direction that you want. And I think one of the biggest challenges is as you guys are navigating your next steps, especially for seniors, figuring out where do I want to go to college? What does my future really look like? You don't have to have all those answers right now, but I think the challenging part is let's really figure out, hey, what are you when you're at your best? What are the things that light you up the most? Because you often hear people talk about all the time, find your passion, find your passion. What does that really look like? Well, I think the first thing is you got to ask yourself, when I'm at my best, what does that look like and who am I around? And then that can give you clarity of direction. And sometimes that clarity of direction comes as you start to immerse yourself in a path and then you realize things open up for you. Because for my path, I got a chance to play football. I knew I wanted to play collegiately. Grew up in a football family, was really fortunate to be able to go play at Miami of Ohio. Had a good career, got an opportunity to make some of the most meaningful relationships. Got a chance to be able to play high school football, and some of my closest friends to this day are some of my teammates that we were able to win a championship together our senior year. But most importantly, once you decide on where you want to go, it's figuring out, all right, what are the things that I know I'm at my best? What are those things? How do I continue to lean into those things? And I didn't know that I wanted to be a coach, but I did know that I wanted to be involved in football in some form or fashion, whether that was getting into front office, going the general manager route, or being able to go be a coach. And once I finished my coaching career, or once I finished my playing career collegiately, I got an opportunity to get into coaching. And the thing that I knew that I loved immediately was getting a chance to work with players. I love the tactical part of it, but more importantly, I like being around people that made me better. I wanted to make a difference. I think the best leaders inspire and influence positive change with people they're around in situations that you're a part of. And that's what coaching gave me an opportunity to do. But I will say this, I've been really fortunate to have a lot of good things go my way, and it's because of one reason and one reason only. I was surrounded by people that inspired me and that were willing to put their arm around me, teach me and guide me, and I think I have a whole lot better appreciation for the people that I was around when I was your guys' age than maybe I did at the time. You don't have to have everything figured out, but what I would say is sometimes you're so busy looking backwards or looking ahead. Be present. Be where your feet are. Understand that being able to give people your attention with the right intention is a real gift. Everybody talks about being present. It's so easy to say, really hard to do. I challenge you guys to be able to do that and be grateful every single day. But it really is great to be here with you guys today.
That's outstanding. So you talk about one decision moment, which was a decision to make a life in football through a coaching career. You had another big decision moment. You considered leaving coaching after winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that decision and what's kept you here for 10 years and counting?
Well, that was really just my way of driving the contract price up with the Rams. But no, I'm just kidding. No, I'll tell you what. I really thought about, I got a chance to get into this. And, oftentimes you really think about what is your real purpose. And sometimes we can be so goal-oriented that there's always a little bit of selfishness that we all have. But I think when you really get outside yourself, and you really have true humility, and I've heard humility defined this way, it's not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking about yourself less. And I think in some of the early parts of our tenure, especially, with the Rams, I get hired as a 30-year-old head coach, and when I was 30 years old, it was really pure. I didn't know anything other than what a blessing it was to be able to get into coaching, to be a head coach, to really lean into our players, to continue to work with our coaches and try to figure out how can we be the best team that we can possibly be. And then as things continue to go forwards, we had a good season in 2017. We ended up losing the Super Bowl in 2018. And it was a really humbling day for me. And the lies I told myself were, I won't be happy until we win a Super Bowl. And that was more about me than it was about the other people. And so we had a decent season in 19. Then in the COVID year, we ended up losing in the divisional round. And then in the 21 season, we were able to win a Super Bowl. And it was an amazing blessing, and I don't ever take it for granted. But what I cherished the most about it was the relationships that were built in the midst of that journey. And I think in a lot of instances, when you have selfish goals, they can sometimes, put pressure on yourself. But when you're really doing it for people that you don't want to let them down, that's where it becomes really pure. And I think about the 21 journey. I think about the season that we had. But I think about the best moments where I was more of a transformational leader than transactional. It was more about others than it was about me, because you wanted to see guys like Andrew Whitworth, Rob Havenstein, who I know his kids go to school here. You get a chance to see Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, the Odell Beckham Jr.'s, Von Miller. That's where it was really pure. And getting a chance to be a part of that team is what I'll cherish forever. But then after the game, everybody's telling you how great you are. And it becomes a little bit more about you than you'd ever want to admit. And so I think what ended up happening was, in the midst of some good things going on, you lose perspective of this is always a blessing. It's never a burden to be in some of these positions. And I couldn't be more grateful, because while some of the other opportunities were certainly humbling and flattering, Mark, there's nothing like the purpose and the perspective that getting a chance to coach does. The platform it provides to be around people that move you in the direction and allow you to become the man or the person that you want to be a lot more oftentimes than not. And so I think when you're around people that inspire you to want to do right, you think about team sports, or when you're part of group projects, whatever it is, you can think about when you're doing it with people where your motivation is, I don't want to let them down, rather than I want to get an A or I want to go win a championship. It takes the pressure off you. I'm such a big believer what you put out is brought back to you. And when you do things with the right heart. And I think in those instances, whether I want to admit it or not, I lost my way a little bit, Mark. But fortunately, I was around a lot of people that challenged me to be the person that I wanted to be, to have the right values and principles to guide sound decision-making. And it's the biggest blessing to continue to do this. And I'm going into my 10th year. I can't believe it. But I'm enjoying it a lot more than I ever had before. And I think you're making more of an impact, which that's really what this is about.
It sounds like that was a new chapter for you in your story, and that you're in a new chapter as a coach.
There's no question. And it coincides, too. I got married. I was 30 years old when I got hired out here, and you think you have all the answers. And what I'll continue to challenge you guys, as you guys are in some of the most fun years of my life when I look back on it, don't feel like you have to have all the answers. Some of the best things that ever happened to me were actually some of the most challenging moments. The following year after we won the Super Bowl was really the worst season that we've had record-wise. We went 5-12. That was when I really almost walked away from coaching. And, and you laugh about it, but I'll tell you guys this, and I mean this in my heart of hearts, and it really took me till I was 40 years old to probably have the appropriate perspective on it. I've been the head coach for the Rams for 9 years, and we've been to a couple Super Bowls. This past year we lost in the NFC Championship. But if you were to ask me, and I mean this in all sincerity, what's the best year that's ever happened to me for my growth? It was the worst year that we've had record-wise. It was that 5-12 season. And I remember so much of my identity, especially when I was your guys' age, and I've struggled with this, and I continue to struggle with this, was really in your production and the things that you thought mattered the most, whether it's being successful athletically, being successful academically. And it really is about doing the best that you possibly can do. Having a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. But I can tell you guys this. We went 5-12, and it was almost like the scarlet letter. My identity and my self-worth, I wrongly put in how we did on Sundays, on Mondays, on Thursdays. And what I've come to realize is that that's really not being courageous. That's not being present. That's not being grateful. That's being outcome-oriented. That's the antithesis of everything that we talk about with our players. But those storms that are inevitable on our journey, they're temporary if you allow them to be. And we talk about this all the time with our group. You're really in 3 phases. You're either in the storm, you're getting ready to go back in it, or you're coming out of it. But the separator will be how you handle those. One of the biggest things that I ask people that I think can give you a guide of where they're really headed is, what are some of the challenging moments you've had, and how did you handle that adversity, and how did it make you stronger? How did you come back from that? You don't really learn about people when things are going well. When we've been, 8-0, that's not really when you learn about. I learned the most about myself in the most challenging times. And what I had a really difficult time doing is I wasn't secure enough to really understand that, no, that's not where my self-worth is. My self-worth is in the relationships that you build, the character that you have, and the courage that you have to continue to go forward towards whatever your goals and ambitions are with the fearless mindset and mentality that I'm going to be my best regardless of the circumstances. If things don't go the way that I want, because any time that you're going to be successful in life, I guarantee you that person has great stories about how they overcame things. You show me someone great, I'll show you someone that has the right mindset, that they're their best regardless of the circumstances, but that is also overcome. So often we live in this society and the social media and this curated image that everything is perfect. That's not real life. And what I hope that if you guys take one thing away from me being here today, it's really understand that some of those greatest setbacks can be your best setups for comebacks. And real growth demands a discomfort. And if you guys can really lean in and know that, tough times don't last, tough people do. And there's been times where I almost walked away and I ran away from some of my biggest fears and insecurities. And the best thing that ever happened was being forced to face it and being around people that were willing to say, I love you enough to keep it real with you. I love you enough to tell you that, hey, I think you're wrong right here and I think you're going to regret it. And if you can navigate your life where you don't have any sort of regrets, that's what a life of purpose and fulfillment will really lead to. And it doesn't mean perfection, but I've been really blessed, like I said, to be here for 9 years. And I think a lot of people would be surprised. Best year of my coaching life in terms of where the most growth occurred was actually the worst season that we had, because it revealed a lot of things about myself that I didn't like. And by no means am I ever trying to act like I'm perfect, but I'm a lot better off than what I once was because I was around the right people and I was forced to have to go through some of those hard things that make you realize, like, hey, I'm built for this, or I'm ready for whatever the future is, like we're talking about this week with you guys. And I hope that resonates with you guys, because I wish I really leaned into that when I was your guys' age. It would have saved me a lot of hassle that I've had to kind of find out the hard way. But fortunately, I'm sitting right here with you guys, and it's a joy to be here.
Sean, thank you. Really inspired by that sense of humility that you bring to your work. I want to turn to our student panelists. And Romy, you're in the middle. We're going to start with you. If each of our student panelists would introduce themselves before they ask a question. Romy, you want to get started?
Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Romy Harari. I'm really grateful to be here today. I wanted to start with something you touched on earlier about being a head coach at the age of 30, which is relatively young for the NFL for sure. And you were leading players who were older, more experienced, and veterans in the game. How did you establish credibility in a room full of elders and veterans?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think the first thing is you want to build a relationship. We always talk about it. Before you correct, you have to be able to connect. And people don't care how much you know. They care much. They want to know how much you actually care about them. And so the first thing is you're really building and developing relationships. You're not coming in acting like you have all the answers. I think there had to be a sense of humility, but there was a work capacity of, all right, I want to be able to get to know you on a personal level. What are the things that are really meaningful to them? How can I really establish, boundaries that, hey, it's not like you're working for me, we're working together, always working together. And how do you create that sense of camaraderie, collaboration, but great communication? And I think the key to communication is, number one, you want to communicate to connect and listen to understand. That was the first thing. Let's establish and let's build meaningful relationships, whether that's with coaches or with our players. One of my closest friends in life is Andrew Whitworth. He was a player at the time, unbelievable player, and he's a few years older than me. So establish a relationship with them first and foremost. The second thing is then really work hard to be able to establish credibility in what you're doing. Can you help make these players better? And so we always talk about the trust triangle. It starts with your character, then there's competency. You have to have some competency in what you're doing. Are you an expert in your craft to try to be able to help them improve? And then the last part is connection. So if you can have character, your word is your bond. You do what you say. You do the right thing even if it doesn't necessarily benefit you, but you know it's the right thing with your moral compass. Then the competency. Whatever it is that you're doing, are you working hard to gain and accumulate knowledge and information so that you can transmit it to others? And then the last and arguably the most important part is the connection. Being able to build and develop those relationships. But those three things were key and critical to being able to set a foundation. And then I think not feeling like you have to have all the answers. I think that's one of the key things. I was surrounded by a lot of people that were able to make me better. This is never, the best things are always meant to be shared. And so that was really what it was about, and really fortunate that things have gone well. But I'm also fortunate for the challenging times that we've had to navigate through as well.
100%. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Tanner.
Tanner Tominski here. With you having such an extensive knowledge and being able to play at the high school and college level, and then being able to coach at the highest of levels, and we have a lot of athletes in the room. When you give advice to high school athletes who want to play at the next level, what do you tell them, and what would be most important to know?
I think, there's so many things, Tanner, that you can go with that. I think the most important thing is don't be afraid to push yourself outside your comfort zone. I think often days, there's a great book. It's a really easy read. It's called The Twin Thieves. And what they said the twin thieves were fear of failure, fear of judgment. And I think especially as it relates to athletics, so often this day and age, how often are we fearing failure? I know I could attest to that. And then fearing judgment. What are other people thinking? Well, in sports or in some of these public settings, I think the best thing that you can do is be courageous enough to overcome those two twin thieves. By really putting yourself out there, not being afraid to say that, hey, that growth does demand a discomfort. How can I really identify what are the skills that I need to accumulate to go or take my game to levels that I wouldn't otherwise? And you have to be able to do that to push yourself past those limitations, past those manageable expectations. You think about anybody that's great at what they do. We just had Matthew Stafford, the MVP of the NFL this past year, whether it's Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, you look at these greats. There was a willingness to push themselves past those manageable expectations. They weren't afraid to fail. They failed before and they've come back stronger from it. And then they weren't afraid of that judgment because there was a security with the people that they were around, the people that really inspired and influenced them to move forward. But I think it would be having the courage to go for it, to really swing, to not be afraid to put yourself out there and challenge yourself to be able to, go past those things that, hey, maybe I'm afraid to really try this because I might fall short. Or maybe I'm afraid to really put myself out there because I might be judged. But if you can overcome that, you'll be so much further ahead in life. And I think the courage to go swing and to go for it is the biggest advice that we have for guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it, man.
Aiden.
Hello, I'm Aiden McVay. Thank you so much for coming. What are some of the values that you refuse to compromise on, even when it would be easier to do so, and where have they came from?
No, that's a great question, Aiden. I think the first thing is we like to teach in acronyms, and so one of the things that we talk about, everybody throws the word culture around, and what we really say culture is with the Rams is it's how we act, interact, and respond, and we use the acronym, it's our air. Can't breathe without your air. How we act, how we interact, and how we respond. But our culture and those non-negotiable things that we expect of everybody, we use the acronym we, then me. And really, we, then me, we've got one for the W, one for the E, and then one for the M and the E and me. But we, then me really symbolizes a lot of things that are great about team sports. Hey, they both matter, but what do we do together? And then after that, what is my responsibility within the me? And so the W stands for work ethic. The first thing that you have to be successful in any arena of life is work ethic. I believe that success travels in the company of hard work. And you show me somebody that's been successful, I'll show you somebody that has the humility to know, hey, I'm going to work at my craft to develop the necessary skills for me to go in the direction that I really want to be able to go. And the question that we always ask our guys, are the habits you have for today in alignment with the dreams and the things that you save for tomorrow? That's the work ethic. That's the W in the we. Then the E in the W in the we is enjoyment. Enjoyment of what? How about enjoyment of other success? One of my favorite things about our team this past season is I thought there was a genuine selflessness and there was an enjoyment for other successes. I thought there was an enjoyment for the natural challenges that we have to navigate. One of my favorite things was the enjoyment our players had for being able to respond to some of the different setbacks. I thought we were at our best in the most important moments. We fell short, but there was a lot of things that I was really proud of with that group. And what do we do together as a team? We work together, we enjoy as a team. Then what's my responsibility within the me? The M in the me is really the mindset. You're responsible for your own mindset. Being your best regardless of the circumstances. And really, what does that really look like? It's so easy to make a commitment to something, but when things are hard, is your mindset that I'm going to be my best? Am I going to have the right energy no matter what those circumstances are to be able to continuously move forward? I think that's a separator, is that mindset. And then the last thing is the E is the energy. So it's the work ethic, all right? It's the enjoyment, and then it's the mindset and the energy. And the energy to me is broken down into two parts. It's your attention. Are you where your feet are planted? It goes back to being present that I talked about a little bit earlier. And then the last part is the vibe. And I want it to be authentic to everybody's personalities. You know, my energy is going to be different than you guys up here, but what is your energy that really is about being present, but then also with the right kind of vibe? And that vibe is either uplifting or it's not. There's no in between. And you guys know what it's like to be around people where you're saying, man, my energy is moving us forward. Or you can make a choice to say, my energy is not doing that. While still being authentic to your personality, my challenge for you guys is have the work ethic. Have the enjoyment for the journey, have the appropriate mindset, and then bring that energy that's authentic to you, where you're really saying, my vibe and my ability to be present is always checking the box. And those are some of the non-negotiables for us that I think have served us really well over time.
Thank you.
Wow. I think we're getting a master class in leadership and
I
coaching.
appreciate that.
You talk about mindset, and I think I feel a little bit like we're with Dr. McVay and sports psychologist.
I don't know about that.
There's a lot of pressure that you and that players have on them in the heat of the moment. Can you talk a little bit about the role that psychology and wellness plays? We have a big commitment to wellness here. Can you talk a little bit about what the role that plays in your being able to stay sharp under pressure?
Yeah, I think it's huge. We always talk about pressure as a privilege for us, but going back to what I talked about, so often in today's day and age, fear of failure, fear of judgment are such prevalent themes. And everybody has different problems. And while they might be different, they weigh the same to that individual. And so I think it goes back to being secure enough in yourself to acknowledge them. I used to look at being able to, we always used to say, okay, people didn't want to voice their problems or address some of their insecurities. I think there's real strength in that. I think a lot of the major growth that have come from me is not feeling like I have to be this perfect leader. I think one of the most important things for you guys to hear today, you might impress people with your strengths, but you connect with them through your weaknesses and your vulnerabilities. And there's real strength in that. Some of the strongest people that I've ever been around, they have extreme ownership, they have accountability, but they have an acknowledgement to know they're not perfect. There can always be growth, and that they use setbacks as setup for comebacks. But it's not weak to acknowledge, I'm having a hard time. But I think it's important to know you're never alone in those journeys. So often I can think about when I've been at my worst, I didn't want to put my problems on anyone else. So I'd internalize them. And then that was where things would just really get worse. But it's, okay, who are the people that you're around that uplift and elevate you? Or who are the people that you can really talk to that inspire you, whether it's your parents, your loved ones, but really identify, and I challenge you guys to find the people in your life that are the all-time friends, not just the good time friends. And what I mean by that is, all the time, they love me and they care about me no matter what the circumstances are, unconditionally. The good time friends are the ones that come around when, everything's going well, but then when you need them the most, they're not really reliable. I challenge all of you guys to be the all-time friends to people and really to lean into that wellness, because you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself first and foremost. And I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned. You try to be selfless and be a servant leader, but for you to be able to do that, or for you to be able to be the people that you guys all aspire to be, you got to take care of yourself first. And acknowledging your shortcomings, there's real strength in that. It's not strong to act like you're perfect, because that's not real. That's not real life, even though sometimes people have this fake image of what it is. What real is acknowledging that, I do fall short, but I'm going to learn from those mistakes, or I'm going to learn from those shortcomings, and I'm going to develop skills that help me be equipped to be built for that journey and to be better for others, and make sure that I'm maximizing everything that I can do by inspiring and influencing positive change with people I'm around and situations I'm a part of.
Thank you. Thank you. Another student question.
After this past season and a playoff run, looking forward into the next season and talking to the guys this summer and training camp at the end of the year, what type of leadership are you looking to preach to them, or is your leadership going to change after this past season, and what are you trying to integrate into your new season?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think the first thing is that I think you want to identify the things, like I've told you, what are the successful outcomes? And I'm not talking about just winning and losing games, but where you can make the biggest impact on people. And so in a lot of areas, we're confirming, all right, this does inspire and influence positive change, but it's really about continuing to develop, each of the individuals, whether that's our coaches, whether that's our players, and what do they need. You have to understand your people before you really can understand how to be able to lead them. And I think there are those non-negotiables, like what Aiden was asking about earlier, but there are also things about how can I continue to develop a more impactful relationship with Matthew Stafford or with some of these guys like a Jared Verse, that are going to be key and critical factors, and how can I make sure that there's alignment with us? And so, but being able to lean into understanding that we don't just start in the NFC Championship again. You got to start all over. You got to have the humility to be able to build it back up, and that's why you got to really love what you do. Because it can be daunting to say, man, it's so hard to get to a Super Bowl or to get to an NFC Championship, and things have to go your way. You have to stay healthy. You have to be surrounded by the right kinds of people. But how can I make sure that I love these guys? And we're identifying the kinds of people that we want to be around, that we're going to add in the draft or in free agency, or the guys that we're going to re-sign. And how can we do it better than we've done it before while committing to those principles, but learning from the previous things that we can do at a high level? But it all goes back to relationships, the core principles that you want to really be able to lean into, and then identifying who do I want to really do it with. Those are the most important things, and you got to love it. Because if you're just doing it for the end goal, I think that's too shallow. I think our dreams are really too short, because I've been a part of teams where you've been fortunate to finish the deal, and don't get me wrong, it's really special to be able to win a championship, but the most important thing is doing it with people that you really love and care about, where it connects you in the meaningful relationships, but having joy in the journey for whatever it is, that mission or those goals that you're trying to achieve. But understanding that that's not the end goal. It's how do I continuously do things that move me forward, that light me up, that allow me to be able to affect people that I'm around in a positive way.
Yeah.
Tell us this. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
We talk about family a lot at Viewpoint. Your grandfather, you mentioned to me, was important to you in your life.
Very.
Tell us a story about your grandfather.
So my grandfather, he's now passed, lived a great life, had a tremendous influence on me. He was a coach. He was a high school coach, worked his way up. He was actually the New York Giants coach at one point, then ended up transitioning from that job and was the general manager for the 49ers for almost 30 years. He was a part of that organization. And so, yeah, it's unique being the Rams coach. And then my grandfather, his name and legacy is there. But what
he's proud of you.
Yeah, he's very proud. But he had a tremendous influence on me. And the thing that I remember about my grandpa wasn't the fact that he was a part of 5 world championships. It was the heart he had for others. He had 3 sons, my dad, and then I've got 2 uncles. And my dad was the youngest of 3. But one of my favorite stories that epitomizes who my grandfather is they were able to win 5 championships when he was with the 49ers. But what he did with his 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Super Bowl rings was he gave them to his sons. He kept the 1st and 5th, but he gave those to his sons. And it's not the fact that he gave those Super Bowl rings to his sons. It's the fact that he demonstrated humility in everything that he did. He was always thinking of others, and he was always modeling the way. I think the most powerful form of leadership is you model the way. And I was really fortunate to be in positions that you just wouldn't have gotten other opportunities otherwise. I finished playing, and then to get right in coaching with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, let's not kid ourselves, that doesn't happen without the influence that Sean McVay Sr. had on the NFL and the people that were in a position to hire me. And so I got a chance to start ahead of where most people do. But what I did want to make sure is that I honored the McVay name by working hard, having the right humility, having the courage to continuously to go for it, and make sure that I honored the way that he treated people, never feeling like you always have all the answers, but being grateful for every single opportunity that you have, being present, being courageous enough to continue to really go for it, but most importantly, do it right because of my grandfather and the way that he set the legacy really for our family as a whole. And he was the epitome of a man's man, not because he won 5 Super Bowls, but because he did do those things that we've talked about and you've heard me mention a couple times. He made situations that he was around better, and he made people he was around better. And the only way that you do that is you have a heart for others. And Sean McVay is, he's looking down from heaven right now, but, I'm super grateful for the influence that he's had on me. And I often think, what would my grandfather do? And that usually gives me a good guiding lens to be able to handle things the right way. I certainly fall short, but more times than not, when I think about the way that he would lead and guide our family and what kind of influence and example he set, Usually that steers me in the right direction.
Thank you. That's outstanding. I just gotta wonder about John, like, because you have 2 children now.
That's right.
I wonder about him, like, did he give the first ring to the oldest kid, or did he have to wait till he had 3?
You know what? That's a good question. I'll have to.
Yeah.
I think he waited till he got all those to be able to
I
give
bet
them
he
away,
did.
but I don't know that.
Another question from our student panel? And
yeah.
then,
So football is always talked about being this big family between people, and you just talked about your grandfather and you starting a family here in LA almost 10 years ago. With the players on the team, how do you use, because you touched on the Rams culture and values, how do you instill that into every single player to make sure that you guys are one unit and be able to have so much success as in winning a Super Bowl and going so far?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the most important thing is you have a commitment to those things. You're very intentional about the types of people that you bring in-house. You know, character is a huge part of it. You might have super talented guys that are coming up in this year's draft, but if they don't have the makeup that we're looking for, we won't sacrifice our standards. But the most important thing is continuing to recognize people doing things right. I think as a coach and even as a teacher, oftentimes we think we're responsible for correcting, but we want to try to really be able to have a positive to correction ratio where, man, how many different times can I recognize the work ethic, the enjoyment, the mindset, the energy being done the right way? Calling people up, not necessarily out. We try to do that on a consistent basis, and I use a lot of different settings to do that. On the practice field, in the meeting rooms. One of the biggest goals of team meetings is to bring the team together, create an appreciation for our defensive players to the offense to the defense, and then when things aren't done the way that we want, we use those as learning opportunities. It's not necessarily correcting the individual, it's correcting the situation and trying to inspire them to want to do better the next time. But the connection, the communication, you know, I'm a big believer in this. Communication is such an important part of any good organization, any good school, any place that you show me that's operating at a high level, I'll show you great communication. And where communication lacks, negativity fills the void. And so how can we make sure that our communication and our clarity that exists is clear, open, honest, it's ongoing, and it's direct? And I think a lot of times, especially when you guys are your age, there was a lot of times where I'd get that feedback and sometimes I'd get defensive. Maybe I wasn't open to it. I challenge you guys to have an open heart to it and to know the people that are telling you these things, whether it's your parents, your friends, your teachers, your coaches. They love you enough to be able to tell you things that maybe others wouldn't tell you. You know, I want to surround myself with as many truth tellers as possible. Now, there's an empathy and an etiquette at which you want to be able to do it, and a timing and a tone. But I challenge you to open your heart and to really make sure that you keep surrounding yourself with people that are truth tellers in your life. Because those are the people that I'm really close with. The people that will tell me what I need to hear, not necessarily what I want to hear. And it doesn't matter whether it's for me or for a player. Nobody's above being coached. And I think that accountability and that humility that's necessary, those are some of the ways that we try to be able to bring everybody together and create that alignment that I think is so key and critical for any mission, whether it be in here, whether it be in a team setting or a business, whatever it is, you know, and communication is a key and critical factor.
you have to invite those truth tellers into your life, though.
You do,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
you know a big part of it too is how open-minded are you to receiving that, especially in leadership positions. Everybody wants to throw this word around, psychological safety, but you have to be secure enough in yourself to invite that kind of stuff and to make sure that when people do give you that feedback, your response is in alignment with making people feel like, okay, they can really do that and we can implement it and they're making an impact on you.
Aiden, you have another question?
When you think back to high school, what's one mindset or habit that you built back then that still shows up in how you lead an NFL team today? And what's something that you wish you started doing earlier?
Yeah, it's amazing when I look back. The work ethic was something that I would always like to say I was a really hard worker. I wasn't afraid to do the hard work, and I think that's where the most improvements came in. If there's one thing I would have said I wish I would have understood, I thought I really committed to having the right mindset, but that is a skill that can be developed. You guys think about it. You know, there's a lot of people in here. Everybody has their different skills or different things that they're really good at. But I would really challenge you to understand that mindset is a skill that can be developed. Some of us have different things that we've gone through, different journeys that we've experienced that forces you to be a little bit more resilient. You might have a stronger, more defined mindset right now, but understand the importance of being your best regardless of the circumstances, being courageous enough to put yourself out there and not be afraid to fail. One of the things that I struggle with all the time, whether it be when I was in high school, whether it was in college, and even nowadays is like the fear of failure, but understanding like I'd rather be courageous enough to put myself out there. And if you fall short, winning and losing aren't really that far apart. Both people are stubborn enough to continue to try. And the person that loses, they're going to continue to grow. The person that wins, I believe there's growth. But even though sometimes there's comfort on the sidelines are sterile. There's no growth that occurs unless you're willing to put yourself out there. And that was one of the things that I wish I had really leaned into a little bit more, and understanding that, hey, where there's a setback, that just offers a setup for a comeback, and not allowing every single outcome to define my identity, but being really rooted and foundationally secure in the things that I know to be sustainable over time. But sometimes going through it is where you really have the appropriate perspective. So we all have got to be able to kind of do it on our own journey, but that's something that I wish I knew a little bit earlier. I think it would have saved me a lot of the stresses that I've had, in the previous few years.
As the head coach of the organization, probably one of the biggest decisions that you make that's most impactful is hiring. Whether it's hiring coaches, recruiting players, and we were talking about this, that if you, as you said, you look at a lot of talented players, how do you weigh cultural fit versus talent when you're looking at people?
Yeah, both. They're so important. And the hard part about the cultural fit is there's tangible ways to measure how fast the guy is. All right, what are some of his strength numbers? What does it look like when you just play the game? But I'm just as interested to evaluate when a guy has a bad play. What does the next play look like? How does that really measure his mindset? How about when he's had previous setbacks, or when somebody's had previous setbacks, how did they respond? Did they run away from it, or did they really lean in, that you could really measure that mindset? We have what we call a North Star that really is a way of trying to measure a lot of the intangibles, and we won't make sacrifices for that. I think there are certain people, I want to find their heart. What's the way that, can we reach them? I do believe it's important to give people grace, but if you find consistent character flaws, no matter how talented somebody is, we'll often say, let them go be great for somebody else. And so I think as you continue to accumulate some experience, going into year 10 now with the Rams, we have a much better idea of what are some of the successful outcomes with the types of people. What does that character really look like? What is their capacity to learn? And then ultimately, what is their competitive spirit? What's their competitive stamina, both from a character perspective, but also on the field? Because let's not kid ourselves. There is some things that we're looking for production-wise that you have to be able to meet the bottom line, but they both matter a whole heck of a lot. We won't sacrifice a talented player if you're not a good person. That doesn't mean a perfect person. That means, if you show the willingness to be able to learn from your mistakes. If I know we believe in giving people grace. If I sat up here and acted like I didn't make a bunch of mistakes and I didn't have people that were willing to forgive me and allow me to be able to learn from it, but you do have to be able to show you're willing to learn from it. You're not making the same mistakes twice. You can show that you have the character to learn from it and apply it moving forward. And those have been some key and critical factors, especially as it relates to our onboarding, because at the end of the day, there's one thing and one thing only that matters, and it's people. Viewpoint is not Viewpoint without you guys in here. And the people make the place. It's not the LA Rams. It's the people that are at the LA Rams, or any great place that I've been. It's always has been, always will be about the people, no matter what occurs and what technological iterations are coming in. People will be at the core of everything, and if you understand that, you got a chance to do things the right way.
AI is not replacing you anytime soon?
No, it is not. At least I hope not, even though I've seen some fake AI things of me out there. But you Google it, you'll get some funny things, but you'll know it's a little heavier set person that they make look like me out there.
You really are, in the public eye, and there's no end of criticism, I'm sure, of every one of your public decisions that you make, and yet I get a sense from you that you're harder on yourself than anyone else.
I'd like to think so, and I'll be honest, I used to let the outside-in narrative shape a lot more of my security than I do now. I think inevitably, when you're in a leadership position, it can be lonely. But like what I've talked about, being able to make sure that you've got the humility and the accountability to be able to acknowledge, I've made a lot of mistakes. I'll continue to make mistakes, but how can I learn from them? I think the most important trajectory of events is always you got to listen, learn, and then you can appropriately lead. And man, in this day and age, we try to be inside out way more than outside in. And I know there's a lot of instances where I was a lot more reliant on some of the outside praise. But I'm better about making sure that you understand what are the things that move us forward. Who do I want to be for the people that I love and that I care about, that allows me to be the man, the father, the husband, the coach that I want to be on a more consistent basis. And those things that are the consistent things in my personal and professional life, they run hand in hand. I don't believe you can just separate those things. When I apply the things that we talked about, the work ethic, the enjoyment, the mindset, and the energy to my home life or my personal life, that's when I feel like I'm at the most peace. And then when I don't apply those things, that's when, you want to be able to be better. But find those things that move you forward and understand that there's consistency. And even though we might try to be able to separate it, you are who you are. And I think everything that we do matters.
Sean, thank you. And then this is World Ready Week. What does World Ready mean to you?
World Ready means, just being able to identify who do I want to be and what are the foundational principles that I want to commit to be the best version of myself that I can possibly be. Not feeling like you have to have all the answers, but understand when I'm at my best what it looks like. Being really cautious and careful about who you surround yourself with. Being totally present, and then making sure that, you're able to find something that really lights you up day in and day out so that you can, in fact, do the things that you want to do. Be that light for others. Be that person when you really think about it. Everybody in here has a friend or somebody in their life that you think about when you're with that person. I just feel better about myself. I just know that I want to do right, and they always make me feel better. That might be a friend, might be a coach, might be a teacher, might be a relative, whatever it is. But wouldn't you want to be that for somebody else? And if you can do that, you'll be ready for a lot of the inevitable things that are ahead in your journey. Success is never linear. I challenge you to lean into those shortcomings and understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, even when you feel like you're in some of those adverse moments. And the tough times don't last, tough people do. And that's what allows you guys to be ready for making a real impact and having an incredibly bright future. And, that's what I want for you guys. And I'm hopeful that a couple of these words today have helped kind of create a little bit of clarity for your guys' mission that's ahead.
Thank you. So I want you to join me in thanking our panelists and accepting the challenge that Coach McVay has given you. And then join me in thanking Coach Sean McVay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our mission is all about future readiness, and it's exciting to see that the LA Rams also have a bright future in Los Angeles here. So
I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you very much. I think it's pretty cool, too. Give it up for your fellow students. Get up here and have the courage. Those are great questions. Awesome job by you guys. Really cool. Good job.
I'm looking, are there instructions? Where are we headed next, Dr. Seger? Okay, we're going to ask you to calmly, with mindset, exit to the back of the room. And thank you. Happy World Ready Week.